The spats and the socks, they're modern military issue. They would only wear those on home service or on parades. Out in the trenches, they would wear long woolen socks and they'd have short puttees wrapped around their ankles to stop mud and dirt getting into the boots. And also on active service, they would wear covers around the kilt. There's a small pocket at the front, that's to take the place of the sporran. And if you look at old photographs from the Second Boer War, they were wearing covers then, so they must have come in around that time. The pattern on the tartan, I believe that's for the Gordon Highlanders. Now the Scottish regiments were formed after the Act of Union between England and Scotland in 1707. But there were Scottish regiments before then. In the mid-1650s, there were the Mounted Scots Dragoons. They became later became known as the Royal Scots Greys. That was because of the colour of their horses. They took part in the famous charge at the Battle of Waterloo. And over the years, some regiments were disbanded and some others amalgamated. So now they're just 6 infantry regiments. They make up the Royal Regiment of Scotland. Now the kilt cover and the jacket, they're actually dated from the Second World War, but they're all almost identical. Now the tunic, it was the same as the British Army would wear, but they'd always have the front flaps cut away like that so they could get access to the sporran. Then we have the 1908 pattern cotton webbing equipment. That's all original from the First World War. Most other countries at that time were still using leather equipment. And the tunic, after the lessons we'd learned in the Second Boer War, the British Army went over to khaki uniforms to be a bit more camouflaged, while the French and the Germans were still using quite elaborate, brightly coloured uniforms at the time, so we were a bit ahead of the game, really. On the right-hand side, they would wear the blue enamelled water canteen. That was pretty standard for all British and Commonwealth troops. And then on the back, there would be the entrenching tool case. That's just the head of the entrenching tool would be in there. Then on the left-hand side, they would have the bayonet, and fastened to the bayonet scabbard would be the wooden handle for the entrenching tool. That's called a helve. This is the entrenching tool and the helve. It is actually dated 1918. I don't know if you can see that on there. There's a date on it there. And how this works is, you take the helve, put it through that hole there, give it a bit of a tap to knock it in position, then you've got it as a spade or a pick. I mean, that's not used for digging the deep trenches, that's just for making a foxhole if you get stuck out in the open sometime. This is the Glengarry cap. It first appeared in the 1790s and it has been attributed to Alexander Ronaldson MacDonald of Glengarry, but it's not too certain whether he invented it or not, but that's the story anyway. And then by the 1850s it was pretty much common headdress for the Scottish soldiers. Now this particular hat, it is a First World War one, and the way to tell a First World War Glengarry, the trim on the edge should be made of leather like this one. Towards the end of the First World War, and then forever after, that rim was made of a woven material. And the kilt on this uniform and the badges on the tunic are for the Gordon Highlanders, but the badge on the Glengarry is for the King's Own Scottish Borderers. But as that badge has been on there over 100 years, I have no intention of taking it off. I'm just going to leave it well alone and leave it as it is.